Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Behind the Pages of the Archport City Chronicles. I am going to go through the prologue and the first chapter of my comics and just kind of point out things that I remember creating them and little interesting notes in the background and some stuff like that. So, without further ado, we're going to start with the prologue, and I rewrote the prologue about 4 times, and this is the final one I decided on, with Takeo here. Takeo is Joe's best friend. They've known each other since they were kids, and this guy over here, his name's either Taylor or Tyler, I forget which. He's not really important to the story, but that's his name, something like that. And I remember making this gift shop. I had a lot of fun making this, and I had a little bit of trouble with this brochure thing that I created here that Joe pulls out the fun list for Egypt from. And this right here is Olivia. She had a bigger role in like the first edition that I wrote my book or comic, my first draft of my comic. And she had lines and stuff, but I kind of omitted most of that because I didn't feel that it was really helping. Even naming her wasn't important, so I just kind of left her presence to a minimum. But I did add this gift cart here with the Ankh shape hanging from the sheaths of the cart, and because I like to put a lot of detail in the background, as you can see. I put some thought into what was in this gift shop, like the mummy plushies and t-shirts. I've seen t-shirts like that, and so yeah, the whole texting thing between Takeo, because he's known Isabel for a long time too, and continuing on to this part, I wasn't sure what I wanted to put on the backgrounds here, but I'm pretty chill with what it is, since it's a hotel and they're trying to make things nicely decorated. So getting to this picture, I use a lot of reds and warmer colors in the background. I try to put a lot of variety of colors when I make the colored pages, and unfortunately the original copy of this particular page got damaged. You can see a little bit of it here, and what happened is it was not well kept, unfortunately. I created it, and then just wear and tear happened because my room's a mess sometimes. I'll have to redo it at some point if I want to replace this page. And at the time when I scanned it, I was really certain that I wanted every possible amount of the page used up. I didn't want to waste any space. I've gotten better at that these days, and although this doesn't really look as great as it could, I am okay with it for the moment. But if it comes to the point where I have some more free time and I feel like replacing it, I will definitely do something a little better, but the content of it will not change. And another thing that gave me grief at one point was this little texting conversation that Joe has with Isabel. I accidentally had Joe's text on the other side, and I had to mess around with a page, and well, I had to flip basically everything, and I colored it because I felt that would be easier, and I wanted to make it look more like something you'd see in your own phone. So that turned out all right. Now this part is the introduction of Jugo, and we've got here, this is Mkar and Zane. They are best friends, and Mkar's Jugo's son, and adopted son actually. Zane's his friend from school, and they're traveling through this building, well, more like tagging along really, because Jugo is somewhat protective of these two because she's been around for quite a while, and she knows a lot more about Archport than a lot of people who live there. So she's going to play an important role later on in the story. And on to chapter 1. So, for this page, I actually had something completely different for the first chapter cover, but I couldn't find it. I could not find it anywhere because it was a loose page. So I redrew it differently, and I'm very happy with the results because the colors are a lot more vibrant. We've got chai here, and got this little mouse house. Funny thing about this, the pattern on the ground here is I was intending for everything to be straight square bricks in a nice pattern. I figured that would be easy, but during the first incarnation of this chapter, I was working on it at college in my zoology class, and my lab partner decided to drop his bag on the table while I was inking. And I'm like, I don't have whiteout. So I ran with it, and this is the result. I do need to work on getting these to look better, and I do have some areas where I can improve on, and I've got some plans to do better with that too. So I am aware of the problems I do have with my art. Now, moving on to this other section. This first section, introducing Tommy. This hasn't actually changed too much. We've got her staff here. This introduction, I tried to make it more interesting. And then there's this panel. I had a blast drawing these things in the background, just showing mayhem like this. Unfortunately, I don't seem to be able to draw this all the time, but I had a lot of fun for what it was. This basic idea of them having this little food fight kind of thing was the same in the original version, but it looks way better here. And I'm sure some of you are saying, why don't you just use this thing up here? Well, I could, but I usually go to the bottom of the page. I am aware of it though. So something I will improve at some point is I'm going to center this text a little more, and we're continuing on kind of introducing Snickers and Acasti, and they're important to the world even if they're not highly seen in this story. And then we've got Jinku. He's a dragon. He has like dragon dwarfism where he's from. He is not from Archport City, actually. He is a friend of Snickers. Snickers kind of just took him along because he didn't like his life where he was. So he left. And now we're getting to Tommy while she's leaving this treehouse. This transition wasn't always the greatest originally, but I'm glad with how it worked out because we're switching to Ivory in a very natural fashion. I didn't have her treehouse as well detailed and documented in my original draft of the first chapter, but it is a lot better here. So, with this third part, we've got these crows bugging Ivory, and Ivory is using some a type of magic that will go into greater detail. There are 3 types of magic. You can use, you can conjure magic, which is what she's doing. You have script magic, which is using words, and then you can use magical circles, which I'm going to go into greater detail of how that works at some other point. It's not going to be super important to the story, but I do have a magic system in place. And when regarding magic, if any person enters Archport City, their magic may not necessarily work the same. Just as a little fact that I'm going to point out now. It'll also be pointed out later, but we'll deal with that when we get there. I haven't written it yet, but it will happen. So, yeah, we've got Ivory flying through here. Avery was actually a character I made on the spot in my original draft. She was originally supposed to appear at one point and not be seen again. She really was just on the spur of the moment, I'm going to draw a fairy and she's going to look like this, and we'll never have to draw a character like this again. I don't like drawing bare feet, but lo and behold, I went and did that because I like to give myself grief, apparently. Yeah, so she pretty much started running off with the script, and this was also fun. I like this picture in the background, and we've got this gerbil being used as a bowling pin back here, and this lunatic in a towel in the cat retirement home. So going back to this, I originally, and you can kind of see the outlines of where the pencil sketches were, I accidentally had Avery's face way over here, so I had to redraw that during the initial sketch, and it was like, oh, but it looks good. I have to erase it though. Yeah, that was the issue there. So moving on to this part, I tried to put some little Easter eggs in here. Mention of Vitani. I've got this is actually the crows talking right here. And then we've got Jason, and Chai's mentioned. So, yeah. So, this part, it's in the background, he's saying, I'm waiting, Avery, don't ignore me. I know those ears of yours hear everything. Every word, and don't shut up, and I won't shut up until you're here. I'll burp the ABCs if you don't. So, yeah. Because Jason's like that. And I originally also had, they had a cat, which appeared once and never again. So I omitted it because it wasn't important. And so I gave Jason a lot of muscles here. So, and then we've got Hito. Hito is gonna have an individual story that we will look at some point later. Hito's story is kind of it starts before this comic does, but the emotional conclusion to the story will actually take place during the climax of this comic. So it will be a side story for potentially another time. I'm debating whether to work on it and release any of it before this comic ends, but because it's going to spoil some things. That's the problem with my side stories, is they're possibly going to spoil some things. But yeah. So, going into the last part, we have Hito saying goodbye for a while, and this is omitting the part in my original draft. I cannot talk today. Where they were going after Homework Cat, who is the bounty on the page. And I was asked to give a little more explanation to how the gates worked, and a better map than I had already. So this is a better, more detailed map with more names and stuff. I hope you guys enjoy it. It was interesting to make. And yeah, that's chapter 1. I hope it adds something to your enjoyment of the comic, and I will see you guys later. Maybe do this again sometime with chapter 2. Tell me what you think, and laters.